Hello and welcome to this week's Emerge 5. Now in this week's episode, we're capping off our fantastic International Women's Week here at EM360. And we're doing that by looking at the overall theme this year, which is Choose to Challenge. Now I have asked 5 amazing women in the tech space to come on and talk to us about the barriers that they've faced, how they overcame obstacles, and really how they are going to choose to challenge. Now this list is in no particular order. I'm going to hand over to them for the rest of the show. So let's get started with our first guest.
Gender bias and inequality is profound in so many industries, and especially so in venture funding. Can you believe that less than 3% of VC dollars go to women, and even less for women of color? At Clearanc, we choose to challenge that status quo every day by leveraging data and machine learning to eliminate traditional bias out of funding decisions. Because it really shouldn't matter where you went to school, or what gender you are, or even who you know. And I'm really proud to share that Clearanc has backed 8 times more women than the VC industry average. Personally, I've been in tech for over 20 years, and it's been great to see how the conversations around gender have evolved, but there's really still so much that we need to do. I personally choose to challenge the status quo by ensuring our hiring pipelines come from diverse representation.
Hi, I'm Cindi Howson, Chief Data Strategy Officer at ThoughtSpot. How I choose to challenge the low diversity in tech and data and analytics? I refuse to accept no or can't when somebody tells me. What do I most want to see from leaders in this space? 2 things. Bring data. I want more transparency around the big equity gap we have. So this is both share the diversity metrics, but also be honest about the pay gap. My advice to women just starting out in their data and analytics career: be kind to yourself. We often are our own worst critics, harshest critics, that internal monologue that, well, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe I'm not fully qualified. I really like this advice that an author, Ruha Benjamin, recently shared with me. Her friends, her colleagues, they big her up, not pick me up, big her up. Big yourself up, surround yourself by people that do the same.
Positive discrimination is very frustrating. It's because it's a highlight of the problem. And in the end, we shouldn't have to positively discriminate. Everyone should be treated the same. But it's probably one of our best bets these days. On our side, what we do is tailor our job descriptions, for example, try to avoid unconscious bias, tailor the vocabulary to be very inclusive and signal this inclusivity. And but overall, across the entire industry, I think continue pushing the existing initiatives that exist, like Women Network, initiatives promoting women in general, and all the Tech for Girls kind of things, like all the effort which is put at the school levels by different organizations to actually promote tech for the girls and say this is not a boys thing, is very important, because as I say, I really feel it's one of the main reasons why the tech world is dominated by men.
As a woman and a woman of colour, I'm passionate about achieving gender and race equality for my future and the future of my children. It is unacceptable to imagine my future daughter entering the workforce facing some of the same barriers that I myself have experienced in the past, and not to mention our mothers and grandmothers 20, 50 years ago. With 42% of women experiencing gender discrimination at work today, clearly there's some real work to do. Taking the time to understand what is contributing to a lack of gender representation in our workforce, along with actions from male allies in gender equality, I believe are some of the first steps to eradicating this. While conscious bias or discrimination is generally regarded as the bad thing and even illegal, it can often be easy to recognise and to address. Unconscious bias, on the other hand, is much more harmful and can be difficult to spot with an untrained eye. They're often cloaked in things like cultural fit, experience, or low risk. So if I had to pick a woman who's been most meaningful to me, then it most certainly would be my mother. In addition to being a wonderful mother, she is strong, determined, and sees things through to the very end. I've grown to realise what vital roles mothers play in their children's lives. And additionally, I've been fortunate to work with and learn from admirable female bosses, mentors, and leaders. So my mantra for the year ahead is to be accountable, to be that role model. Do your best and help others. You never know who you're inspiring or the impact that you might have. Especially as a Black female in the technology sector, I feel it's so important that we have our voices heard.
The progress that we've been making towards gender equality is not something we should take for granted. It's not a given. It's actually something that requires our continuous efforts and attention, because otherwise we will never make progress forward. And I think this current situation we're in with the turbulence should not stop us or hinder us from making this progress. At Glovo, they actually hired me in the middle of this pandemic, because for us, diversity, inclusion, and belonging is really the right thing to do. We want to make sure that everyone, regardless of their gender, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their race, ethnicity, abilities, that everyone has equal opportunity, and that we dismantle some of our systems and processes that are leaving people out by default. And we actually want to set the stage and the tone of what good looks like, both in Europe, but also eventually in the world. We will mandate inclusion, and we will encourage more women to join STEM fields, and also show the importance of role models.
And that's a wrap on this week's Emerge 5. Remember, a challenge world is an alert world. Individually, we're all responsible for our own thoughts and actions all day, every day. We can all choose to challenge and call out gender bias and inequality. We can all choose to seek out and celebrate women's achievements. Collectively, we can help create an inclusive world. I promise from my end that I'm going to work tirelessly to create content that makes sure women's voices in tech space are heard. So thank you for joining us on this week's episode, and thank you so much for supporting International Women's Week here at EM360. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, you can join the conversation at EM360 Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and of course, for more great daily content, head on over to em360tech.com.